Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question comes to us straight out of the Judge Vault, and it was a very important question to know if you were playing Standard back at this time. And even though the cards have kind of fallen out of significance, it still is a great question to practice your understanding of how continuous effects that modify power and toughness work. Amy attacks with Wandering Fumarole, and Nick lets it through unblocked. Amy then says that she's going to switch the power and toughness of Wandering Fumarole. When should Nick cast his Spatial Contortion in order to kill this land? In order to answer this question, let's first start with some background about how continuous effects that modify power and toughness work. Basically, the game has a layer where all continuous effects that modify power and toughness are going to apply. And within that layer, there's sublayers for each different type of power and toughness changing continuous effect that there is. For the purposes of this question, we'll note that continuous effects that set the base power and toughness to a specific number are in one layer, and continuous effects that modify the base power and toughness by giving plus X or minus X, those are in a second layer, and continuous effects that switch power and toughness, those are in a third layer. Now, the order that those layers are applied is the order that I just said. First, all the power and toughness base setting effects are going to apply, then all of the power and toughness modifiers from plus X's and minus X's are going to apply, and finally, all of the power and toughness switching effects are going to apply. Notice that the continuous effects apply in this order regardless of when they started. So even if a switching effect started before a plus X minus X effect, the switching effect is still going to get applied last, and it's going to switch the power and toughness that the creature has at the specific time when that switching effect is applied. So, let's take a look at the situation described in our problem statement, and we can identify that there's three different continuous effects that modify the Wandering Fumarole's power and toughness. First, there's one that sets its base power and toughness to 1-4. Then, there's one from Spatial Contortion that gives +3, -3. Finally, there's one that switches the power and toughness from the Wandering Fumarole's activated ability. Let's notice that because the developers from Oath of Gatewatch were extremely kind to us judges, they actually happened to put one of each of those three types of continuous effect modifiers in there. So we know exactly what order these three are going to apply in. Regardless of what order those effects started to apply, we know that we're going to set the base power and toughness to 1-4 first, then we're going to give +3, -3 second, and finally we're going to switch the power and toughness from 4-1 back to being 1-4. And so, if you have all three of those continuous effects applying to Wandering Fumarole at the same time, you'll notice that its power and toughness is going to be 1-4. Now, Nick is probably going to be kind of dissatisfied with that because it means that the Wandering Fumarole is not going to die. Second, he's going to be really dissatisfied with the other interesting part, which is that based on how things work out, it turns out that no two of those continuous effects are going to kill the Wandering Fumarole either. If you have the base power and toughness set to 1-4 and then give it +3, -3, that's going to have the exact same net result as if you have the base power and toughness being 1-4 and then switching the power and toughness. In either of those cases, the power and toughness of Wandering Fumarole is going to be 4-1. And so therefore, we come out with this really counterintuitive fact that it's not possible to cast the Spatial Contortion against the Wandering Fumarole and have it die. The Wandering Fumarole will always end up being a 1-4 or a 4-1. Even worse, Amy still has the option of activating the Zero ability to switch Wandering Fumarole's power and toughness to make it whichever of those two options that she prefers. Now, that's kind of messed up, and a lot of people in the standard set had a really hard time grappling with that interaction. Hopefully now you're able to explain it to all of your friends. But there is one other thing. I'm not going to leave you all high and dry after saying that we can't use the Spatial Contortion to kill the Wandering Fumarole. Turns out there actually is a chink in its armor. If you play a lightning bolt, then you can get a lot better outcomes. Let's take a look at exactly how that would work. We'll say we have the exact same scenario as in the original problem statement. Amy's attacking with Wandering Fumarole, Nick lets it through unblocked, Amy says that she's going to switch the power and toughness. But this time, Nick has a lightning bolt instead of a Spatial Contortion. Turns out that if you play the lightning bolt in response to the power and toughness switching ability from Wandering Fumarole, then the Fumarole is going to die guaranteed. Let's take a look at exactly why. First, if Amy just lets the stack resolve the way that it is now, then first the lightning bolt is going to deal 3 damage to Wandering Fumarole. After that, it's going to get its power and toughness switched to being 4-1. Of course, that means that the lightning bolt's 3 damage is now lethal damage and the Wandering Fumarole will be destroyed. Let's say Amy doesn't want that to happen, so maybe she's going to respond to the lightning bolt by switching the power and toughness again. So in that case, what's going to happen is the power and toughness is going to switch to being 4-1, then the lightning bolt's going to apply and deal 3 damage to Wandering Fumarole, which is lethal damage, and then state-based actions are going to destroy the Wandering Fumarole before the other activation can switch its power back to being a 1-4. And so we see that in either case, the 3 damage from the lightning bolt suffices to kill the Wandering Fumarole, regardless of how Amy plays. Another really counterintuitive interaction that was also super important to know when this land was wandering around Standard and even Modern. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling. But until then, I hope you have a great day.